On December 7th, Hitler approved the final draft of Operation Christ Rose, now renamed Watch on the Rhine. Hitler's plan of attack was to break through on the Ardennes with 3 armies. The 6th Panzer Army, led by the butcher from Bavaria, Sepp Dietrich. The 5th Panzer Army, led by Baron Hasse von Manteuffel. And the 7th Army, led by General Brandenberger. They would cross the Meuse River on the 2nd day between Liège and Namur, bypass Brussels, and reach the great port of Antwerp on the 7th day. This operation, Hitler believed, would destroy more than 30 American and British divisions. He believed it would be the beginning of the end for the Allies. Within the next week, thousands upon thousands of troops and thousands upon thousands of tons of materiel were transported secretly from assembly areas to terminals just behind the front lines. On the eve of December 15th, 250,000 Germans stood poised on the line of departure, prepared to annihilate the enemy. At 5:30 a.m. the following morning, flame erupted along an 85-mile front. Hitler's great drive to Antwerp had begun.
The 10th Armored Division sent 2 of its combat commands northwest of Luxembourg to go into action there, and they sent my combat command west to Arlon and then on to north to Bastogne. I preceded my outfit into Bastogne and got into Bastogne about 4 o'clock in the afternoon and found General Middleton. General Middleton asked me how my outfit fought and how many pieces my outfit would fight in. I told him 3. He said, all right, send 1 to Noville, which is 6 or 7 kilometers north, 1 east to Longville, and 1 southeast to Bras. A little sidelight here. I had held up the march of our outfit to get O'Hara in front, because O'Hara had not been in the fighting heavily down around the Merzig area. So we got O'Hara in front, and I sent him out to Bras.
I took my team down this road toward Wiltz, and we stopped for the night opposite the town of Warden. On our way down this road, we passed many American soldiers coming to the rear, most of whom seemed to be from the 28th Division. Apparently they'd been hit hard further forward. When we got to our destination for the night, since we received our orders at 5 in the afternoon and there was not much daylight left, we settled astride the road and blocked the road to Wiltz.
I arrived in Bastogne just as night was falling. I found a MP who led me to Colonel Robert C.P. It was a very brief meeting, and Colonel Robert C.P. told me that O'Hara had been sent out to the east of the town and was in a defensive position, and that Cherry was moving out slightly to the northeast of the town, And as soon as my column arrived, I was to keep moving and move to the north of the town to a little place called Noville. If there were any Germans in Noville, I was to knock them out of the town and to occupy it. If there were no Germans, I was to occupy Noville, going no further north, because this would be the limit of the range of the 10th Armored Division artillery, which was located in the vicinity of Bastogne.
This then was the disposition of Combat Command B on the 18th of December, the night of their arrival in Bastogne. Team des Aubry was at Noville. Team Cherry at Longbilly. Team O'Hara at Warden. The total strength of the three defending units was about 75 tanks and 2,800 officers and men. Battering at the gates of Bastogne were the advance elements of General Manteuffel's 5th Panzer Army and General Brandenberger's 7th Army. Approximately 300 tanks and 50,000 men, whose mission, in addition to taking Saint-Vit and Wild, was to take Bastogne, and to take it fast.
Bastogne schnell zu nehmen. Denn es kam auch darauf an,
It was very important to capture Bastogne fast. It was the most important road junction in the southern area of the Ardennes combat section. And in the event General Eisenhower's reserve forces, which we suspected were near Reims, arrived to attack, they would have to pass Bastogne.
Ankamen und gegen uns angesetzt wurden, mussten sie in jedem Falle über Bastogne kommen. Ich bin General der Panzertruppe Hasso von Manteuffel.
I am Hasso Eckhard von Manteuffel, former general of the Panzer Troops and commander-in-chief of the 5th Panzer Army.
We completed establishing the defenses of Noville about midnight. Actually, the defense was a routine, traditional type defense. We set out roadblocks to the east, one to the north, and one to the northwest, because these were the directions that we expected the Germans to attack us. The fighting throughout the night was sporadic. It was a piecemeal attack. They would hit us with small units from the north, and then they'd hit us with small units from the east.
My battalion spent the night on the high ground south of Warden, and all night long we saw no German troops or heard nothing of them. However, we did have one straggler come to the rear who told us they were east of us in the Wiltz area. About 10 o'clock in the morning, they came down from the Wiltz road and shot up the artillery observer's tank and one or two other tanks. We fought on all morning long and part of the afternoon, staying in the same position there, keeping the Germans at bay.
At first, the defense of Bastogne rested with 3 units of the 10th Armored Division. Task Force de Sobry in the northeast, Task Force Cherry in the east, and Task Force O'Hara in the southeast. I am General Anthony McAuliffe, United States Army retired. I was at Bastogne with the 101st Airborne Division. We had known that the Germans had attacked, but we didn't know the extent of the attack or the conditions to the north. As I drove north, I reached a crossroad just a couple of miles west of the town of Bastogne. I knew that 8th Corps headquarters was located in that town, so I decided to drive over to that Corps headquarters and try to learn something more about the situation. It was fortunate that I did so, because I learned from the Corps commander, General Middleton, that the orders for the 101st Airborne Division had been changed, and that the division would come to Bastogne rather than to go to Vermont. I also met there Colonel Roberts, who was the commander of Combat Command B of the 10th Armored Division, who were already on the scene and already in the fighting.
At 1400 hours, the paratroopers and our tanks and our armored infantry launched the attack. At 1400 hours, the German forces launched an all-out attack on Nouville. So we had the situation of the Germans and the American units attacking one another simultaneously from points about 700 yards distant.
For the next 3 days and nights, the defenders of Bastogne slugged it out with the numerically superior enemy. Then, on the 22nd of December, when the besieged city was finally encircled, the commanding general of the 47th Panzer Corps sent the following surrender ultimatum. It called for the surrender of the Bastogne garrison. If the Americans did not comply within 2 hours, Bastogne would be completely destroyed and its defenders annihilated. General McAuliffe's one-word answer, nuts, reverberated around the world. Fighting in the beleaguered city was Combat Command B of the 10th Armored Division. From the very beginning of the battle for Bastogne, heavy fog and bad flying weather prevented aerial resupply and fighter support. There was a shortage of surgical equipment and not enough blankets for the men suffering from wounds and shock. Ammunition was running low, and some of the artillery batteries were down to less than 10 rounds per gun. But the morning of December 23rd broke clear and cold, and visibility was unlimited from England to the foxholes of Bastogne, where every man looked up to the sky and prayed, and their prayers were answered.
The 19th TAC, we called them, furnished us every half hour a squadron of planes which circled us. At the same time, by some luck, a captain staggered into Bastogne. How he got there, I don't know, but he was an expert on operating with the air from the ground. We had a fine VHF set which could work with the air. We set that thing up in the middle of the compound, and he used the air as follows. The airplanes carried napalm bombs, ordinary bombs, rockets, and what he called bullets. He says, I pulled the napalm bombs first, then I pulled the bombs next, I pulled the rockets next, then I gave them bullets, and before I let them go, I made them circle once to give us new targets. I have estimated that the air was equal to at least 2 divisions of help, because they could see in the snow, which had newly fallen, where the tanks had gone, and they were able to bomb all of these little woods. And at one time they found a column moving right toward the 4th Armored Division, which was battling to get into us. And I think the next air squadron destroyed the whole group.
One of the saddest and most dramatic incidents occurred on Christmas Eve night. We had asked for volunteers when we lost our hospital, and a very fine trained nurse, the daughter of the village hardware storekeeper, Renee Lemaire, volunteered. She took charge of a group of wounded from the 10th Armored Division in a house on the main street of Bastogne. But on Christmas Eve, a 500-pound bomb struck the house, went all the way through, and none of the 10th Armored Division soldiers, nor Rainy the mayor, not a one survived.
On December 26th, elements of the 4th Armored Division crashed into Bastogne. The encirclement was broken, and for the Germans, it was the beginning of the end.
After we'd been in there about 30 days, on the 16th of January, we were relieved. We left Bastogne in one of the worst blizzards I've ever seen. Going up Longwy Hill, about 40 miles south, great big long hill with a gentle slope, the tanks just couldn't make it. They were sliding back like bears on a slippery slide. In thinking it over, I've decided that if we had been in Bastogne alone without any infantry, we couldn't have held 10 minutes. The 101st Airborne, without the steel that my outfit afforded, could not have held. But the steel of my outfit and the blood and flesh of their outfit made a pretty tough combination.
It's always seemed regrettable to me that Combat Command B of the 10th Armored Division didn't get the credit it deserved in the Battle of Bastogne. All of the newspaper and radio talk was about the paratroopers. Actually, the 10th Armored Division was in there a day before we were and had some very hard fighting before we ever got into it. And I sincerely believe that we would never have been able to get into Bastogne if it had not been for the defensive fighting of the 3 elements of the 10th Armored Division who were first into Bastogne and protected the town from invasion by the Germans.